Today, I'm going to be discussing the current state of 4-star characters in Genshin Impact. As the title implies, this is going to be a spicy take, so expect some angry comments. Also, when I refer to new 4-stars, I'm talking about Inazuma and onwards. Now generally speaking, I believe all 4-stars are usable. Some people believe that newer 4-stars are getting worse over time, and some are just outright unplayable. However, I don't think this is the case, and I'll explain why. But first, let's identify why people believe 4-stars are getting worse in the first place. Xiangling, Xingqiu, and Bennett were available in 1.0 when Genshin was first released. At the time, they weren't really regarded as being good because the game was new. Nothing crazy here. As time went on, people started to realize that these three characters were game warping. Fast forward to today, and they are all regarded as the best 4-stars in the entire game. I often refer to Xiangling as the pyro archon simply because of how good she is. These three are now meta-defining, even gaining the title of national a while back because they synergize so well with so many different teams in the game. So why do some people believe that 4-stars are getting worse? Well, it's because these three national characters are the jack of all trades. They do everything very well. From damage to utility, they got you covered. This is also why some people believe that the newer 4-stars are just getting worse and worse. Also, no hate to anyone who uses these characters. Now the important question is, are the three OGs just too strong, or are the newer characters just bad? In my opinion, I believe that they are just too strong. And since they're way too strong, people misjudge the fact that other 4-stars can perform well if invested into. Since Xiangling, Xingqiu, and Bennett are all so strong, some people now set unrealistic expectations for new 4-star characters. Some people also believe that any character that isn't at their level is garbage. They'll probably say things like, why would you build Farazan when you can just use Bennett instead? While this looks like a valid argument, and it's understandable why, it's actually just a really bad mindset. I don't agree with this because making a statement like this implies that you want power creep to be introduced into the game. If you want new characters to be stronger than already existing ones, the game just gets extremely boring. Also, introducing power creep in a game like Genshin is just terrible and unfixable if it happens. Only one character has ever gotten an adjustment post-release, and that was Zhongli. Hoyoverse is undoubtedly trying to avoid that again. Now, I'm not saying something like Thoma is ever going to match Xiangling in terms of damage. What I'm saying is that the three national characters are just so out of line that they make every other 4-star look bad in comparison. So it's all about perspective and perceptions based on what has been set in the game since 1.0. Just because these characters are out of line, it doesn't mean the other 4-stars are getting weaker. The three national characters are just much easier to slot into any team, and as I mentioned earlier, they are just the jack of all trades. If you go to any tier list, you'll always see Xiangling, Xingqiu, and Bennett at the top of the list. This makes some people believe that if any future 4-star is not as good as them, then that means the design of any 4-star is going to be weak, which is simply not true. Moving on. Now, I normally don't criticize others, but I feel like this has to be said. So I've watched some videos and seen some posts where people complain about underwhelming characters such as Sayu, Thoma, Kale, Dori, Candice, and Farazan. But here's the funny part. They haven't even built the character. Those characters are just stuck at level 20 on their accounts, but they still claim that the character is bad and underwhelming. Then they also claim that all 4-stars are just getting worse over time. But have they ever considered actually building these characters and trying them out in a variety of team setups? The point I'm trying to make is that some people claim that 4-stars are getting worse without actually ever building them because they are just too comfortable with the national characters. And out of all the characters I just mentioned, I have built Sayu, Thoma, Kale, Dori, and Farazan. Focusing on Thoma specifically, I mained him even before Dendro, and I admit, he was really weak. Now with Dendro, he's in a decent spot. Is he on the same level as Xiangling? No. But just because Thoma isn't on the same page as Xiangling, it doesn't make him weak. Once again, my reasoning is that Xiangling is just so far out of line that it makes him look bad. It's all about perspective. Now there's one last thing I want to mention. It's hard to compare characters in Genshin Impact. The game has way too many factors to accurately compare characters. You have artifacts, talents, different teammates, weapons, elemental resonance, constellations, enemy resistances, and so much more. Putting Xiangling, Xingqiu, and Bennett aside for a moment, let's take a look at somebody else pre-Inazuma release. Let's use Diona for example, then let's try to compare her to Layla. So I've seen a lot of people say that Layla should never be built because Diona is just better. But this is an issue already. You can't really say which character is better because there are just too many things going on with each character. For example, Diona has a weaker shield than Layla. Layla has a stronger shield, but she can't heal. Another example is Diona can't utilize Sword Piece Tenacity to buff her team that well, but Layla can. Another one is Diona is bow, and Layla is sword. Hopefully you're starting to get the picture. And when you add constellations into the mix, it just gets even more complicated. Each character has pros and cons, and I think it's important to keep that in mind. Also, Diona might suck in one team, but be amazing in another. Likewise, Layla might be amazing in one team, but suck in another. Characters should be evaluated individually so that they can be considered for specific teams. Saying that Layla is a worse Diona doesn't really mean anything. There has to be context. So with that being said, I believe some people have set the bar too high with Xiangling, Xingqiu, and Bennett, while simultaneously not ever trying out other characters. The reason why there's a disconnect between these characters and the new 4 stars for some people is because they just prefer to use characters that already provide a lot to the team. But this doesn't make the newer 4 stars unplayable. Rather, it just means they have different ways to be built, which is what makes Genshin Impact fun to play in the first place. I'm sure the majority of us don't want to sit there and use the same 3 national characters over and over. It gets boring. At the end of the day though, it's your choice to build whoever you'd like. Don't let people tell you that this character is weak, so you shouldn't build them. You can clear this spiral abyss with any character in the game. But yeah, that's my current take on the current state of 4 stars in Genshin Impact. Feel free to share your thoughts, as well as adding on to anything I said. Thank you for watching.